So work-life balance, when people talk about work-life balance, okay, so first of all, I don't think it exists. I think work-life balance is what you feel is balanced, and it may not look the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the ability to be creative and you have the ability to create, you can work 15, 16 hours a day, 5 days a week, and still feel balanced.
Oh, man, we're going to have some fun today. We are now live. Lena, so good to see you.
You too.
Yes.
Long time.
It is. It is. How long has it been? We saw each other, what do you think, like 2017, 16?
I don't know. Before, after my baby. This is kind of how I think.
That's
I
a good
do my
measuring
time.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would say before. It was
so that
before.
would be 2015 or early 2016.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to be really good friends. We still are, but I should say it this way. We saw each other more.
Yes. Interestingly, because I lived in Ottawa then, and now I'm so much closer. And
right.
But it's different. Life is different.
Yeah. I want to get into that with you. Yeah. You know what it was? Why I reached out to you, because I saw you in a video. At least I thought it was you. And I think you were at a Sarah Larby event.
Yes.
Yes.
Like a speed networking thing?
Yeah,
yes.
Speed networking. And so the camera was going by and I hit pause. I'm like, hold on a second. That looks like Lena.
Yep.
But then I couldn't tell if it was you or not because it's been a few years. And then I was like, I'm starting to feel a little creepy because I'm looking at this picture too long.
Don't worry, you and everybody. I do it every so often. I'm like, wait a minute.
And then I saw you somewhere else. I'm like, it is you. I'm like, awesome. We're going to sit down and we're going to have a little conversation. And
absolutely.
So let's do this. So I want to kind of dive into a few different things with you. One, I want to get into what it's like working with your husband, because that's always a difficult thing, I think, right? Just trying to find that balance, and also with your daughter as well, too. And what's that been like? Then I want to dive into your businesses, because you've created some incredible businesses over the years. You're also a real estate investor. So when I kind of just get caught up in regards to what you've been doing over the last, I guess, whatever it's been now, 6 years since I've seen you. And then just touch on the economy, or some advice for people who are looking to get into this crazy world that we're in, and if they want to leave their full-time job.
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely.
So what's it like working with your husband and your daughter, who is now 7 years old?
7. She'll be 8 in October.
Wild. That's so wild.
Well, the honest truth is, I don't think working with your spouse is for everyone. My husband and I actually started working together before we became a couple. So it's an interesting dynamic, because every so often when he gets very, very upset for various things like clogging a toilet or causing other kinds of havoc in our home, he'll joke and he'll say to me, my intention was just to hire you to make me rich. So when you are in this dynamic of working with your partner, living with your partner, being with your partner almost 24 hours a day, there has to be kind of this ability to joke and to understand that this dynamic is going to be very intense. Work becomes very intense, because sometimes what's at home will come with you. As much as you want to say you're going to leave it at the door, you don't.
It doesn't.
At least I don't.
It's a hard thing to separate. It is.
Very.
Now we've done it as well too, but sometimes it just spills over. Like you can't help, like you're thinking of something because you're so involved in it and you enjoy what you're doing. Yep. And then all of a sudden something pops in your head and like, Shadi, what do you think about this? Yep. Or, hey, should we do this? And and he's shoveling food into his mouth. He's like, I don't really want to talk about this right now.
So it's, as long as you can understand that this is what's going to be coming, as long as there's an understanding of the work never ends, right? Like it doesn't end. It's not, I went to my job, I came home, my boss was a jerk, so I came back and I told my spouse all about it. I come home every so often and I will be like, my God, my boss today, you won't believe it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about him and I'm telling him. But you don't have that same kind of disconnect where you can turn it off. Emergencies that happen, they happen. There is no shutting off the device. There is no nothing, because your device might be off and his might not be, and somebody's going to get a hold of you. It's worked for us. And I think it's because our entire relationship has really been built with the intention of creating something together. We weren't people who met when we had already established our own lives and our own paths and we're trying to merge them.
Mm-hmm.
We met in a period in our lives where we were both trying to figure out what the best path was. And we found a path that we thought we could both go on together, initially just as business partners, and it just spilled into life.
Right. You know what's interesting, though? At least this is what I've found. You know, you hear the saying of opposites attract.
Yes.
Me and my wife are opposites.
Oh, so are we.
Yeah. and so it can be challenging. However, it's actually really good from a business standpoint.
100%.
Because there are things in my business that I just do not want to do, but she's incredible at. And there's things in my business that she wants nothing to do with that I'm good at. And from a business standpoint, it works really well. It can also work very well in a personal, obviously, relationship as well, too. You just have to know who they are.
Yes.
It's really important.
Very, very important.
Let's talk through that. And how were you guys able to kind of, because obviously it was difficult, but you eventually figured it out. How did you do that? Because that's a big issue for a lot of couples where they actually just go separate ways.
Yes. Okay. So.
And get you a little closer to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me get,
there we go.
Here we are. It's so
close and
now.
Personal.
COVID had us like, don't get too close to things.
I know.
We've been conditioned. So, okay, my husband and I are absolute opposites. If we were to describe him, we would use words like calm, logical, practical, thorough. And if you use words to describe me, you'd use things like wild and chaotic, impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
So
big visions, dreams.
Yes,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, they call me a firecracker. And it's one of those kind of, you don't know what you're going to get, but it's going to be loud. It's going to be spectacular. And, that is what it is.
Yeah, but they need us and we need them.
100%. So I joke every so often that my husband and I, alone, neither one of us would be where we are today.
Agreed.
Neither one of us. He'd still be analyzing his first deal.
Yeah.
And I would have been bankrupt at least 5 times by now.
They save us.
They do.
Yeah.
And we pull them.
Yes.
So
that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, it's a good analogy.
It really is. So we're tethered to one another, right? So we pull them along and they ensure that we are not diving over a cliff. You know what I mean? And together we create a balance. And if we're able to find out how to hone that balance in, you can create magic. And it took us time to figure that out. There's, like I was very young when I met my husband. I was 20. He was 27. In your 20s, that's a pretty big gap, right? I'm still studying. I haven't finished school. I haven't really gone out to be an adult yet. And he's already graduated with an engineering degree. He's already had a job as a grown-up engineer. So it was a very different dynamic. And when we started, it really was a dynamic of, okay, you're young. I'm going to teach you. You're going to follow me because I'm an expert and I know these things. And this is where we're going to go. We're going to take these courses. We're going to learn these things and we're going to do everything a certain way. And I would look at things and I'd be like, but it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And I had to learn how to communicate this to him because I was this doesn't make sense. And his response was, how dare you say these things? Like, why would you say these things? And we need to be positive. And he felt like I was attacking his vision. So I realized, okay, we need to have facts. My husband is an engineer. Mm-hmm. Let us put together some data, bring facts together and say, okay, based on this information and this information, when you compare these two things,
right? Because
it doesn't make sense.
They're more factual, and you're more gut. It's like a gut. Okay. What did you do to figure that out? Because for me, when I really figured it out, I did the DISC analysis. So a lot of realtors will do that. It's like a personality test.
We did that.
Yeah. And that was when it really hit. And there was another one I did too. And I can't remember what it was called. Was it Myers-Briggs? I can't remember. But it was like these cylinder and they're different colors. What did you do?
So we did a DISC analysis. I mean, I don't think either one of us were surprised by the results of our DISC analysis.
Yeah.
At all.
Right.
But what we needed was how it is to communicate. So to be honest with you, our communication changed after we had found ourselves a business coach who was supposed to come in and kind of take a look at the businesses and see where we're going to go. And he was like, you know what? I don't think the two of you understand how you need to speak to one another in order to be heard.
That's a very good point. because it's the communication. How do you communicate to him, and then how does he communicate to you? Because it's very different.
Very different.
Right.
And he broke it down and he said to us, and he goes, okay, look, what is the biggest problem that you have, right? And one of the biggest challenges that I personally had was that I will say something to my husband, right? Brilliant idea. And I tell him and he'll brush it off. And then 6 months, a year down the line, all of a sudden he'll come to me and be like, oh, I had this thought. Why don't we do blah, blah, blah? And I'm thinking, hello. And it drove me nuts. It was like, why is it that when I tell you something, you're not listening to me? And then all of a sudden you come up with these genius ideas. Or when I tell you something's not working, you're not listening to me and you're doing your own thing. And it turns out that for him, he needs things on paper.
Right.
He won't recall. It's not that he's doing it on purpose. He won't recall. And because he's like that, that's how he communicates. And I don't communicate well like that. Please don't sit here and show me 14 spreadsheets on why it is that we need to do. Give me point A, give me point D, give me a couple of in-betweens, and let me just let it fester. And when I have questions, I'll ask.
Right. And let's go along this path. Let's figure it out as we go. Right.
So this particular gentleman was able to kind of find a way for us to merge our languages and create a method of communication. And it required a bit of compromise on both of our sides, right? So we had to introduce like workflow management software. Believe it or not, it's software.
Yeah.
But it really was so that I can put things in there, he can put things in there, and they're there so that we have points to discuss. But in between, we make notes. That way for him, he can go back and he can read those notes and he can progress where he needs to progress. And I don't have to worry about, just downloading onto him and him not listening.
Right.
So
because you just got so many ideas in your head and you're just trying to dump it. Like, we got to do this and we should do that. Yeah. And he just needs it like, okay, I need it in
a list.
In a list and in an email and documented and flow chart.
Yes. And then he learned, don't get up at 4:00 in the morning, Mr. Guirguis, and put together an email with instructions and processes and, standard operating procedures and think that I'm going to read it and that's just going to be how it is. Like, you need to talk to me as a human being. I don't do well with just electronics. I need human communication. So together, we were able to finally, with the help of this gentleman who was supposed to come and help us with our businesses, we were able to kind of figure out a way of, okay, Shetty, you're going to send an email, but in the morning, you're going to follow up with a conversation. And Lena, you are going to follow up with an email. And then when you agree, you're going to put everything into this particular software that's going to track your progress. And so then, of course, now we have this software, and Shetty, my husband being who he is, went off to find even better ways to manage workflows and tasks and things like that. And now we've got this huge thing on steroids.
Now, do you guys meet on a regular basis, and how often each week?
We're together every day. So,
But are there scheduled meetings?
Every so often, depending. So we have team meetings with the rest of our team. So bookkeepers and administrators and everybody else. So each team has a team meeting weekly, and then we prep prior to that together for our team meetings weekly. So we have roughly 3 team meetings. So we'll have 3 one-on-ones.
Okay, perfect.
When need be.
So that's a good segue to get into the different businesses that you do.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to touch into that because I know you had stilettos and hammers. Yes. That was such a great. I love that marketing that you had behind it. Right. With the was it a hammer or was it a sledgehammer and high heels? I can't remember what it was.
I have a picture that we did when we did a shoot years ago. That has me in stilettos with a sledgehammer. The brand itself is it was a leg in a stiletto overlooking kind of a landscape, like a cityscape.
Okay.
So we still have stilettos and hammers. It's still going.
Yeah. And what is that though? That is your...
Oh goodness. So Stilettos and Hammers was founded in 2012 because I, as a woman in the real estate scope, so at that point we'd been investing 8 years. And I've had a very difficult time communicating with the men that I had to deal with in the industry because we were in small towns. We weren't in the big cities. So the mentality was a little bit different. And,
I think you're in Belleville, right? Was it Belleville?
Cornwall.
Oh, Cornwall, that's right. Yes, that name rings a bell now.
Cornwall and then the Ottawa Valley.
Right.
So it was a different time, right? Like this is 2004, 5, 6, 7, very different time to begin with. And then, when you go into smaller towns, there's just a different way of doing business. And I didn't like it. So I thought, you know what? I'm not all that special. If I'm feeling like this, there must be other women who feel like this. And I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to create a group where women can come together and we'll ask all the questions that we want to ask. We're going to get the answers without feeling like we're asking out of place. And I'm going to get them tools, resources, education, whatever it is, so that they can take their journey. So that's how Stilettos and Hammers started.
And I think that was like one of the first ones, if I recall. I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, yeah.
Because then after that, it was like, I like what Lena's doing. I'm going to start my own. Now, look, there may have been somebody else before you, but I recall in this industry, you were one of the first ones.
We were one of the first. I was definitely the first in Ottawa, that's for sure, because that's where I started. Because at the time, I was living in Ottawa. And it was huge. I mean, our first meeting had, I think, 30 women, and it was progressively growing. So we would get 40, 50 women at a time. And every so often, we would let men in for special occasions, right? So if we had our lawyers coming to talk about structuring your asset protection plans and things like that, we'd open it. We'd have like 150 people come out. And it was great. Yeah. And then I got pregnant. And I thought that, I'm going to take a month off. I'm going to have my baby and back to business. And she knocked me off my feet for a year. Surprise. Yeah. Very different.
They have a way of just tangling you up for a while. Yeah. That's what they do.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea. Like she gave me a very big reality check. And it was great. I would not have traded that experience for anything because it helped me kind of refocus what it is that I wanted to do overall. Like, where are my priorities? Where do I want my priorities to shift? So we took a year off. We came back. We started doing kind of boot camp training. We were working with a group of women to flip properties in Cleveland. Okay. And then my dad got sick.
Why Cleveland?
So.
And then we'll get back to your dad.
Yeah. So my husband and I started purchasing like multiplexes here in Cornwall and the Ottawa Valley back in 2004. Yeah. Right? It was great. It was great. We BRRRR method everything, right? So as the tenants moved out, we'd clean units up, increase rents, stabilize the buildings, cash flow all day, every day. It was wonderful. And then we were approached by an investor here who was flipping single family homes in Cleveland. And all she was looking was for money partners. Mm-hmm. And we thought, you know what? Great. We have a solid portfolio. We have some cash. Why not do something a little more passive? And we worked with her for about a year and a bit. We did, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 transactions with her. And the last 2 that we funded, she defaulted on her loans. So we had to foreclose. So we foreclosed on these properties that were mid-reno.
In Cleveland?
In Cleveland.
Okay.
So we had to finish them. Otherwise, we would have lost the investment because we had funded purchase and renovations.
Okay.
And the amount of work that it took to build the team and create the systems to get this stuff done, we were like, well, we have it. Property is dirt cheap. What are we doing? So we just started buying more.
Right. Because the numbers just made sense.
The numbers made sense. So for us, we have always been cash flow purchasers. Like, to this day, if I sell my property for 5% more than I paid, in 5 years, but I've been cash flowing every single month. And I'm talking good cash flow, $400, $500, $600 a month. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I don't need the appreciation because the appreciation is something that's just gravy. I can't eat it today. I can't feed my family with it today. I can't do anything with it today short of eating into my cash flow and pulling that equity out.
Right.
And anything can happen and that equity, like that appreciation could disappear.
Well, we came from that old school
Very
of
old
like
school.
Cash flow is king and it's just icing on the cake. Yeah. You'll eat it when you get to it, but the cake itself is the cash flow.
Different.
Yes. And I think a lot of people didn't see and understand that over the last couple of years. And they just banked on that real estate is always going to go up.
Yeah. And it does. Not the way that it has been. That was not generally normal. But, we were happy with 5%. I'm still happy with 5% annually.
I like boring real estate. Call me boring, but I like it boring. Give me some cash flow because I look at, I don't care where it's going to be a year or 2 from now. It's
100%.
irrelevant to me. I'm looking at where's it going to be 10 years from now?
100%.
Most likely.
And those same properties that we bought in very low appreciating areas, right? And they didn't do much. It's been one of them 20 years. It's quadrupled. So I don't know. It works.
Right. Yeah.
And on top of that, it's been not like it's a healthy cash flow that you don't have to think about it, right? Like interest rates change. Okay. We're okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we also purchased at a time where interest rates were at 8%.
Right.
Like our first triplex was 7.89%. The second was 7.9 something, and then 8.14, right? One after the other.
Right.
Different times, different challenges. But Cleveland just made sense.
Okay.
Like Cleveland, yes, it's got areas that are very depressed. We don't have those kinds of situations. And I would say we're very fortunate here in Canada that we don't have those extremes here. Our social system, I guess, works well enough to prevent that from happening. But at the same time, we don't have the same opportunities available to us either.
Right, exactly. Okay, so you've got Stilettos and Hammers.
Yeah.
Hold on, and then I
So
guess,
let's start from the beginning.
yeah.
So we have our real estate holdings, right?
Yep.
So we started that in 2004.
Yep.
And then I started a full service property management company
I remember
at
that.
the same time.
Yep.
And we now do full service management for third party investors. And we've been doing that since 2007.
What was that called again?
NV, property management.
Yes, and that's still going.
Still going.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
We're Scott McGilvery's trusted professionals in Hamilton.
I didn't know that.
Now.
That's amazing.
So
Congrats.
we've done that. It's been great. With NV, we've created also self-management solutions for landlords as well. So people who maybe don't have the cash flow to pay for full service, but need the systems and maybe some on-demand assistance. We have solutions for that.
Yeah, and I remember too when you came out, you did some presentations on that,
Yes.
and it was quite advanced at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if there was a little bit of AI in there, but I
Yep.
mean, there was definitely a lot of automation in
Oh,
it.
yeah. And
Right,
it's
which was
even-
really cool. And then, like, getting the handyman there and like the contractors and
Yeah.
all that was all built into that
Oh, yeah.
software.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
still there, and it's just been
Growing.
taking steroids.
All right, good, good.
So we went into Envy. Envy
Yeah.
then led to Stilettos and Hammers.
Yeah.
And then from Stilettos and Hammers, we ended up building our portfolio in the US. We started a consulting company
Yeah.
around the same time. And when my daughter was born, we started a commercial construction company as well.
Okay.
So we had relocated home. So we came back from Ottawa to the GTA. And we had an opportunity to partner on some major commercial properties that required, fit outs, build outs, and different things. So we started a company that just kind of also grew and expanded.
What got you into commercial construction?
So the best way to put it is with commercial construction, there's a lot more structure. So we're very structured people. As wild as I may be, structure also works. I'm not I wouldn't do well in Texas. I'm not a cowboy shoot from the hip kind of person when I'm dealing with my businesses.
So you like systems?
Yes.
I like systems too. I don't like creating the system, but I'll follow the system.
So my husband loves creating the systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just enjoy having them there so that there's accountability
Right.
always there. So
Yep.
with commercial, people are licensed, people are insured. There's very, very clear-cut rules of engagement versus the residential scope is very the wild, wild west, right? If one guy's willing to take cash and he can, knock this price off and it wasn't something we were too keen on getting into unless it was big. Things like infill projects, right? We're going to build, custom homes, or we're going to build, a row of townhomes, things like that. So Leona Construction came to life, and, everything else was still going. And then we just recently opened up a co-working space in Richmond Hill. So
Okay. So that was born because of the commercial construction?
So the construction company was working with a project manager who happened to have some commercial space made available to him downtown Richmond Hill, which is maybe 5-6 minutes from where we're living now. And he wanted to use it. So he asked my husband if they wanted to combine their offices, right? So the two of them are going to go in there. They're going to have an office. And I had told my husband years ago, I'm like, we should open up a co-space. That would be so great. Office rentals and this and that.
Such a great idea. So many people need it.
honest, and COVID just turned it into a completely different business. So when my husband heard this from his associate, he was like, well, hold on. Do we really need 5,000 square feet? Why don't you have an office? I have an office, and we do this with the rest of the space. So Flex Space was born. And of course, us being who we are, we turned Flex Space into not just somewhere where you come and you rent office space, but we have administrative support. So if you are a small business owner who can't afford, a full-time bookkeeper, you get to plug into our team and pay for what you need.
Love it.
Plug into
That's
the team.
such a brilliant idea.
So it's been great. It's been great. The space is wonderful. Our members are absolutely phenomenal.
So how big is the space? Is it just on
small.
one floor?
So we've got the first floor, which is where all the office and co-space is. It's maybe 3,000 square feet tops.
Okay.
It's small.
And how many offices are
We
in
only
there?
have 4 offices,
Yep.
and then we've got 11 plug-and-play stations.
Got it.
We've
So
got
like an open kind of a concept, plug and play,
Yep.
and people can do whatever
they
work,
want.
put
Yep.
their headphones in, and
We've got a
do the
private
thing.
phone booth, we'll call it. So it's a room privately, kind of soundproofed for people who need to make private phone calls. We've got a boardroom, and then we've got event space on the second
And so
floor.
then they can then schedule their time in that private.
100%.
That's brilliant. I got to come check this place out.
It's wonderful. I call it the jungle of Richmond Hill because a girlfriend of mine, her name is Shay. She runs the Goods by Shay, and she creates custom wallpapers. And we've got this jungle,
I love
custom jungle print in the back, coast space that's just such a beautiful, fresh breath of like actual life. It's beautiful. So all of our businesses have somehow found a way. They've all been driven towards creating solutions for problems that we had that we didn't have solutions for that we're certain other people are going to have. So we're just we're like, hey, don't suffer.
it. Right.
Let us do this. But it all evolved because of, okay, how much do I really want to put into this? Real estate is great. Buying, fixing, flipping is wonderful. You know what I mean? But I don't know who says that, real estate is a passive means of income. It's not. It's a very active means of income, whether you're managing your property manager or your tenant or whatever else. There requires your energy, and it's unpredictable. If the roof goes, if the furnace goes, if a boiler goes, you can't rely on that cash all the time.
Right.
But real estate is a wonderful place to put your cash, to preserve it, to protect it from the volatility of other types of vehicles.
Inflation,
Yes.
like everybody knows about very well nowadays. It's a great way.
100%.
It's a good hedge against that.
It's a wonderful, wonderful tool to maintain, preserve, and grow your wealth with minimal risk if you're doing it right. So we were like, all right, you know what? We're young. We've got a lot of energy. So why not take on these additional businesses? We've got the interest to do it. And then the money that we take goes in and it continues to purchase real estate. And with that, we've had the privilege of not really having to go out and spend time seeking, joint venture partners and trying to create all of these additional steps because our goal was never to have 400 units. Right. Our goal was to be able to provide for our families.
So before we move into the last
Yeah.
segment here is, where do you see your focus going now? Do you think you're going to offload some of these properties that are maybe giving you a little bit more headache? Do you just keep them? Do you focus more on the commercial space? Where do you see things moving?
So we offloaded. We had a few kind of, I would say, underperforming assets that we were very fortunate to offload between 2018 and 2021.
Yeah, but you had a crystal ball though, so that's not
Sure,
fair.
I call him my clairvoyant economist. That's who I have. I have a clairvoyant economist.
Yeah.
So we offloaded those. We're not in any we don't have any intentions of offloading our multiplexes. My
Yep.
goodness. We're going to continue to buy in Cleveland.
Okay.
The market, in my opinion, even though it's gone up significantly since we started in 2012, is still fantastic.
It still is so
Fantastic.
crazy. Yeah.
Fantastic. I
Right.
mean, expensive in Cleveland is laughable, in my opinion.
It's so true.
You know what I mean?
So true.
Why not?
Yeah.
And our focus really is right now on, we're taking the management company and focusing it a lot into self-management solutions, automated solutions for landlords. We've
Yeah.
got some AI that we're working on that's coming in that's going to make tenant screening. And it's just going to do really great things for landlords who don't have the ability to go off and pay for professionals. right? But still need those professional results. And my husband is currently working with a group to develop a golf course outside of Guelph. So we're looking at that. They're looking at site plan approvals for a subdivision.
It's so
all that fun.
exciting. I could just sit here and listen to you all day. Like, it's just incredible what you
Yeah.
guys have accomplished.
And we'll focus on the franchising probably of our co-space. It's a concept that seems to be very well received. We have a lot of people who are, we have more demand than we can service, which is a good problem to have.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of requests for additional spaces in various areas in our specific kind of with our ethos. So that will be the goal, is to focus on kind of those three elements of development, the US real estate, and the co-space kind of going through.
So cool.
Yeah.
So then I want to dive into this last segment then of somebody's listening to your story
Sure.
and they're finding it inspiring
Sure.
and they're at their 9 to 5 and
Yep.
they're like, how did you start? How do I get into this world? Do I just jump right in? Do I ease into it? Like, what advice do you give to people who wanna, like, they're inspired by you? How did you start? How did you get it all going?
So all of that credit is given to my husband. I honestly had no idea what real estate was until this man walked into a fitness club that I was managing and was like, "Hey, do you want to help me build my business?" And I thought, okay, I don't have any bills to pay. Sure.
All right.
So that's how I got started. I had somebody who knew a little bit about something who opened my eyes to it. So for the people who are listening to this, you're already there. Like, you've already had your eyes opened. Whomever opened that for you is great. Now you're here,
Right.
and what
Because
do you
they're
wanna
listening
do?
to this.
Yeah,
So it's okay.
100%.
So it started.
You're already
Got
there.
it. Got
you're
it.
All,
That's
you're
a good
already
point.
there. We
Mhm.
all started at that point. We didn't know anything about it. Somebody said something about it. So now we're learning. So if I were to give advice, what I would say is, number one, education is key, but the right education. So make sure that the information that you are collecting and the tools, the resources that you're referring to and working with are actual tools and resources coming from people who have the same goals and the same mindset that you do. Because there are very different types of real estate investors out there, and there's no wrong way to do this, short of closing your eyes and buying whatever you can in hopes that it'll cash flow. So make sure you find people who are doing what you feel is right for you, because you might not want 500 units, but you might want, let's say, 3 or 4 in an area that's going to net the income that you have today in order to be able to leave your job.
Okay.
So find out, what it is that you want to do, and find the people who are doing those things and listen to them. Don't be fooled by social media. Not everything you see on there is true, believe it or not.
Very true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, do be careful and follow them for a while. Ask questions and ask other people.
100%. And human connection is key. So those would kind of be the first little things I would say to get started.
Mhm.
You need to know where your end game is, because believe it or not, you need a job in order to qualify for mortgages in real estate if you're planning on buying non-commercial real estate. So don't, jump the gun. It's very sexy to say you can buy 30 properties and, this is what it's going to be, but you can't refinance if you don't have a job, right? You can't do anything other than sell and take that cash and lock it into something else. So you need a clear plan. You need to talk to people who have done it, and don't be afraid. The first property we bought, the interest rate was 7.89%. Interest rates don't matter as much as the quality of the property that you're buying. Don't rush into it. Don't rush into it, because good deals are not deals that come by every day. They're not deals that are available all the time, right? So don't rush into it. If everybody's jumping on it, the likelihood of it actually being a good deal is not really high, because why didn't the first guy snap it up before it got to the point that it's at?
Right.
So don't stress. There's real estate for everybody. And if you have the ability to build a network and work with a team, it's going to make it a lot easier. Learn from the people who have already done it. Don't make your own mistakes.
Yes, that's such a good point. You know why? Because somebody was asking me that same question as well too. You know what I did? I attended a networking events, and I would sit down and I would listen and I would take notes, and I'm like, I like that speaker.
Mhm.
I wonder if they would actually be open to me having lunch or having a coffee with them just to have a
100%.
conversation. Then I would go and do that. And I'm telling you, I would sit there and I would just take notes and I would write. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just getting all this great information.
Great.
And people that are where you want to be, a lot of times they're willing to share that
100%.
journey, to share that the mistakes, and also as well too, like when I see somebody new and they're hungry, I get so excited for them. I'm like, I can see that you're passionate. I can see that you're ready to do this and embark on it. I'm willing to give you
100%.
what you need to help you get in that way.
100%.
I'm not going to do it for you. You got to do it, but here's how you do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, like, I think that people who have genuinely gone through this industry and have built their wealth the right way, have felt pain and genuinely want to assist others in avoiding said pain.
Because it's not a competition. I feel like you want other people to be successful as well too.
If we all succeed, number one, we can actually create a different environment, right? So if we can all go out there and be decent human beings and we can be good landlords and we're purchasing properties with the right mindset and we're not just there because we want to be the next Donald Trump, we can actually create an ecosystem that will allow us to provide an environment where we're going to attract good tenants, we're going to attract good trades, we're going to attract good people. One of the best things that I can say that I would say to my husband when we first started was, it's always better to have 10% of 10 pies than 100% of one.
Right.
Because if that one pie, something happens, you have nothing. But if something happens to one of the other 10, like one in the 10, you still have 9.
Right.
So don't be too focused on, okay, do I have to partner? Today, probably you're going to need to find partners because it's different. Qualifying for mortgages are different. The cost to get in is a little bit different. So if you have people that you can trust and you can go into that partnership, or you go into a joint venture together and you do what you need to do it. And don't worry too much about how much am I giving, how much am I getting. 10% of 10 different things is always going to be better than 100% of one.
Now, what about, okay, so they get into real estate investing.
Yes.
I think we all know too that it's difficult just to live off the cash flow.
100%.
Okay. I think it's been sold that you can, and it's difficult. It's
really is.
I don't even know if I want to say it's impossible, but it's difficult.
Here, it's very difficult.
Very difficult. So then how do they make that transition? Do they have to create some form of active income
100%.
in their buying the real estate and also create a business as well too?
So it's so funny. I was just having this conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago, and I said, there is no real estate investor. If you look at every investor who is no longer working in a 9-to-5 job is actually successful growing their, portfolio and things like that, you'll notice that they have multiple other businesses that they're doing.
Yes.
Many of those businesses are related to real estate, right? So some are mortgage brokers, some are real estate brokers, some are, appraisers or inspector, but they all have side hustles, let's say. There's always something else that is bringing in active income. It's a business, and that money now is going in and funding that real estate portfolio because they know in, let's say, 10, 15 years, they're going to be in a position to liquidate some assets, have some money working passively, keep some assets, and then they're going to retire. And I think that it's very important if you are planning to leave your job to understand that you need to have something else that is an active, predictable means of income. Now, when I say predictable, I'm not saying I'm going to get $5,000 a month every single month. Business doesn't do that either. But at least you know that you have control. So if this month I need, let's say I'm a home appraiser and I know that I'm planning on going on vacation in September. I'm going to Europe. It's going to cost me $5,000. I would at least have control to say I need X number of appraisals to make up for the extra cash that I have. You don't have that when it comes to real estate investing. I can't magically make my cash flow increase. Right? I'd have to buy additional property or I'd have to do other things. So it's not a magical kind of, I made this decision and in 3 to 6 months, it's going to be there predictably.
Right. If anything, it's going to take money out of your pocket 100%. Because of roof or a furnace or a this or a that. unless you're actually going to build something else on that property,
Yes.
higher and best use.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And then with your job, you can't necessarily have that when you're salaried, right? It's up to you whether or not your upper, people decide that, yes, we're going to, yes, we'll authorize the pay increase or the overtime or this and that. So if you plan on leaving a job that is a steady income, that has benefits and all these other things, because you don't get any of those things either as an entrepreneur, make sure you have a backup plan, because it doesn't. Cash flow will not suffice enough with the cost of living that we have here. If we were, down south, if we were anywhere else, maybe.
Right. But it is very difficult
It's very
up here.
hard.
I mean, listen, even for me, like when the interest rate started going up,
Yep.
I was like, I don't know where it's going. I'm not going to get into a long story about it. I just locked everything in. Lock it in. I'll worry about my real estate stuff later on.
Yep.
Let me work on some other businesses, or let me even create some. And that's the cool thing with being an entrepreneur.
100%.
You can just create, you can pivot, you can adapt. And that's
100%.
the incredible thing about it, because I find, and I'm not knocking a 9-to-5 by any means, but I found like when I was doing my job, it just kind of it shut down my creativity.
100%.
And now that I'm in this world, I'm just like, oh, you can make money here. Oh, you can do this. Oh, you can create that. And you move more into a creative element.
100%. And I think that creative element is really key in keeping, so work-life balance, when people talk about work-life balance, okay, so first of all, I don't think it exists. I think work-life balance is what you feel is balanced, and it may not look the same for everybody. But when you have the ability to be creative and you have the ability to create, you can work 15, 16 hours a day, 5 days a week, and still feel balanced.
Yes. So true. Because you're also in that, your job or the world that you're living in, it doesn't always feel like work.
No.
Like I feel like I'm living my hobby at times.
Yep.
Is that how you feel?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Other days it's like, oh,
As
hold
other
on a
days
minute.
it's hell.
It's like, whoa, whose bridge are we burning today?
Yeah, that's what it turns into work.
Some days,
Right.
but it's not every day.
Right.
And if you're doing it right, 5 days of the week, it's not. 2 days of the week, it is. So you don't feel like you need a vacation from your life. And I think that's, for me, that's how I measure balance. Is my daughter happy? Is she, does she show signs of being a good, kind human who is progressing well in life? Yes. Fantastic. Do I feel like I need a vacation from my life? No. Fantastic. I am balanced. I'm good.
I love it. That is a good way to determine if you're balanced or not. Because it is. You hear that word all the time, right?
Always.
Work-life balance. And so I think you did a good job explaining it there.
Thanks.
So very good. Listen,
Tell me.
I've enjoyed this conversation with
Me
you.
too.
If we were to kind of wrap things up right now and you were to give some last words of advice, what would that be for somebody that's listening and they're enjoying the conversation and they want to embark on this journey, or just mindset, whatever it is? What would you leave them with?
So what I would leave them with is, number one, trust yourself. As hard as that may be, trust yourself, because even if you think you don't, you do. So just trust yourself. If something is telling you it's not good and everybody else is telling you it is, just trust yourself. And number two, when you're in this journey, sometimes on your way up, things feel like they're actually going the wrong way. You feel like things are not right. You feel like people are attacking or hurting or whatever else. It's actually just part of that fire that you're going through to, be reborn, I guess. So don't take things personally, ever. What people say or do when it comes to you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them and whatever it is that they're dealing with at that point in their life. Don't let them discourage you from the dream that you have, because remember, so trust yourself and continue. And as long as you are not hurting anyone, real estate is a game where you can do whatever you want. It just needs to be legal. It needs to be ethical, and both parties have to be aware, and they both have to agree. So get creative.
I love it. It's you versus you.
Yep.
Don't blame anybody else. It's you. Go and embark on that journey and believe in yourself.
100%.
Lena, So awesome having you here. I appreciate it. If anybody wants to learn more about you, they want to get in contact with you, they want to do business with you, they want to take you out for lunch and have a coffee and
Anytime.
learn more about your
I'm always
journey.
down for coffee. I'll never say no to coffee.
That I've figured out today.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. How would you get a hold of me? That's great. You can just find me on Instagram, Lena Guirguis. I'm sure you guys will have my name on there.
Yep.
Or you can shoot me off an email, Lena, my name, at nvpm, so Nancy Victor Peter Mary.ca.
Awesome. All right. We will do this again.
Awesome. Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
It was good seeing you. Thank you so much.